And I remember feeling like something really awful had just happened, but I understood it because of Rodney King. And I understood it not just because of Rodney King, because of what had happened to the community in Los Angeles that for decades had been abused by police. Now, whether or not one wrong begets another and whether that's rough justice, I don't even feel like I'm in a position to say. I don't think that there's ever been a more guilty person put on trial than O.J. Simpson.
Pretty fucking guilty.
I mean, you have the victim's blood in your car, in your house. Well, I mean,
extraordinary.
Somebody gave me a copy of that book that he wrote, If I Did It, and my wife threw it out.
Did you even get to read it?
Let me read it. No. I never was going to read it. It's one of those books I was just going to put on the shelf.
I just watched the news.
What the fuck is that? There's certain books.
It's so wild.
You have somebody in your office, you go, look, somebody gave me this book. I'm not reading it.
It's so difficult because, one thing that always stuck with me about that case is and I won't mention them by name, the moral high ground that some of the lawyers involved have taken, on various social and criminal justice reform issues. And always in the back of my mind, I'd be like, you fucking defended O.J. Simpson. What are you talking about? That's number one. And the second part of it is the human cost behind that tragedy also. I have these seared images into my brain of that Goldman family. The sister and the father, where they were very outward with their torment. And I recently watched I'm a sucker for it. I guess I'm admitting it, for the true crime genre. But I watched the latest documentary. There's a new one on Netflix. There's always a new one.
On OJ?
On OJ. And it's very well done.
It is.
And it's like 30 years later. And I know that there have been a few. This one is excellent. And, Kim Goldman is still, this ruined her life. And, on the flip side, you have these, when there's a wrongful conviction, that was, in my mind, a tragedy going the other way. But when there's a wrongful conviction, it's not just the people that are in there doing all the suffering. It's their families. It's their kids. There is, it has a ripple effect where there is a community of people fighting for them. And I just wish I had some sort of magical power to pull these prosecutors into what that emotional tumult is like. I was grateful that I had, JD was able to let his guard down. And I don't know, but for his experience being wrongfully accused of something, and, that he would have had the openness to hearing it. And, the way that he was charged with a crime without a grand jury. And I don't think that there's a person among us that if in your worst moments, if someone was recording you and you're saying things you wish you didn't say to a significant other, that's what he did. That's the crime. I mean, hey, I'll tell on myself. There are things that I've done that if someone was recording it, or things that I've said that I wish I didn't do or say, that, but for the grace of God, I fucked it up.
Yeah,
but I mean, anyone in their private moments, and then to just use that to weaponize and undermine, to me, is he a perfect man? No, he's not a perfect man.
Perfect man doesn't exist.
Yeah, am I saying it because he ended up agreeing with me? No. He's a human that errs, just like all of us. Yeah. And I think we need more prosecutors, more judges like this man that have been on both sides of it and are willing to set their egos aside, willing to suffer whatever consequences come from it. He told me at one point, when he was nervous about doing this, these people ruined my life because I exonerated 2 people. He said they've been after me ever since. And the fact that sort of one-upsmanship and that competitiveness that you referred to earlier, it's just sad to me that we can't get over ourselves enough.
What bothers me so much is that I gave him that opening. Mm-hmm. I gave him that opening. Yeah. And somebody was hurt that I cared about very much and used and exploited. And it's not like they're calling her today going, hey, how are you doing? Are you doing okay? I mean, it was simply, political. It was just political in its entirety. And I feel like I had a lot more years, Joe, to kind of look at these kind of cases because I was open to it. And, when I mentioned that those are just the only 2 I reviewed, how many more are there? And I'll never see them. And it was because of a mistake I made. And
Do you think you're going to run again?
Yes.
This is very common as well, right?
Yes.
And the couple that you had in one of your books from, was it the mining people from, was it California or was it Nevada?
I wrote a book with Paola Harris called Trinity, about an egg-shaped object that happened in 1945 near White Sands. That now we have reinvestigated it. The first book was criticized and, appropriately by someone who said I hadn't gone to enough of the written records. Well, now we've done that. So we've republished the book. It's called Trinity. And it covers 3 cases. In all 3 cases, the object is egg-shaped, the size of a medium-sized truck. Okay? It would fit in this room. It would be about the size of this room. Then there is a case in Socorro, and there is a case in Valensole. Socorro and Valensole, and people have concentrated on the first one, the one because it's 2 years before Roswell, and there were witnesses there. In Roswell, there were no witnesses. There were people who came later who found the stuff, and they reconstructed the story, and it's a very interesting story. But at Trinity, they saw it arrive, and they saw it crash. And they were there for 10 days afterwards, watching the recovery. And they went inside. One of them went inside, and his father went inside also. So we have a very rich description of that. And where is it in the literature? Nowhere. I mean, Paola Harris found this, did research for 4 years on that, and then told me about it, and then we did another 4 years of research together at the site. And we found a lot of correlations. But there are the Socorro case and the Valensole case.
Could you tell me before we move on to those other cases, what correlations did you find?
Well, in all 3 cases, it's an egg-shaped object. In all 3 cases, there are traces that could be seen, could be described, could be analyzed. In all 3 cases, the beings are short. They are, about 3 feet, 3.5 feet. They breathe air. And what kind of extraterrestrial is that comes here and breathes the air? Okay, we don't go. If we go to the moon, we're not going to breathe the air.
How do we know that it breathes at all? How do we know that these things breathe at all?
Just because they had no breathing equipment.
But how do we even know that they're
normally?
Biological?
They had 2 eyes, a small nose, a small mouth.
But couldn't they possibly be some sort of a creation? Instead of being a biological entity, couldn't they be some sort of artificial life?
So I've asked Gary Nolan about that. I'm not a biologist. And I think it would be known if somebody had created a meta-human.
I don't mean somebody.
But,
I mean another life form from somewhere else.
There were stories of the Russians actually thinking about creating a dwarf, human, to pilot their ships because they didn't expect to have the energy, to have a big rocket.
Sort of cohesive identity, but they don't have a homeland. They're just living in other people's countries. And, I think the lesson from World War II and much of the 20th century probably is kind of the opposite of the one that people have taken from World War II, which is nationalism is bad and it's dangerous and bad things happen when people start to think that way. I think the real lesson from World War II is, or from, what happened to the Jews specifically, is everybody needs a country. You need to have a country that is looking after you and looking after your interests, because living in other people's countries, it can go well for a long time, but it's not just the Jews. Like, minorities in general, like, bad things happen over time. Minorities are just easily scapegoated. They're easily made the sort of the outlet for the frustration and resentment of people that are upset over unrelated things, and it's an uncomfortable position to be in.
There's also general suspicion when cultures move into areas and don't assimilate, and then try to bring with them the rules of their land, which we're particularly scared of in America. We hear the concept of Sharia law. Like, people start to freak out. Well, there's people that move here that want that, and they don't want to assimilate, and they don't want to be a part of this homogeneous culture. They want to change it. So that scares people too.
And America is very, this is one of the, America is a very unique country in a lot of different ways, but one of the ways that we're so different from the European countries. I mean, I guess you could point to a lot of things, the lack of a feudal history that we were emerging out of. We kind of just started out as a liberal republic. The fact that we have like the frontier experience, which is just, no Europeans can really relate to what was going on out there. I don't know if you've seen that new Netflix series, American Primeval.
It's amazing.
Dude. And
I had Peter Berg on here the other day.
That's right. Yeah. And all I kept thinking as I'm watching this is like, man, this is not like the U.S. Army that's out there like on the frontier confronting these situations. These are like the regular people who like went out there and lived, and this is an experience. So you have those things, but
it's very accurate too.
Yeah, it was fascinating. I loved they had Jim Bridger in there. That was I've always been a fan of his. So
that was amazing too. And how about the Mormon guy?
Dude, people
Brigham Young.
Yeah, people don't realize today, unless they really know the history, the Mormons were off the hook.
They were gangsters. They were fucking dangerous foes. You couldn't fuck with the Mormons back then.
Well, they had
been fucked with.
They were ultra cohesive, and they were serious about what they were doing. These people were not playing games. This was not like a thing to do for fun. They were dead serious about it.
And they had already been ran out of several states.
Yeah. So I was going to say, like, the thing that's so different about America from a lot of the European countries, and when we talk about nationalism, like, this is something that really, that you have to keep in mind all the time, is that America, like, we've been renegotiating our identity, like, generation by generation ever since America started, like, from the very beginning. I mean, if you go back to the American Revolution and the founding of the country in the late 1700s, before those guys were dead, a bunch of the major cities, and eventually all the major cities, like, very quickly by the middle of the 1800s, they're not majority Anglo anymore. It's not English people. It's a lot of Irish, a lot of Germans, still a lot of Anglos. But, you have to, and the fact that different religion, you've got Irish Catholics coming into this Protestant, very Protestant at the time country. A lot of the Germans that were coming in were German Jews who, were coming along. You think of people like Astor, the famous Astor family. That was a German Jewish family that was in New York. And so that happens. And you're talking about, again, an influx large enough to really swamp the Anglo population in many of the big cities. Well, not another, a generation later, barely 40 years after the Irish migration really hits its peak, huge influx from southern Italy, from Eastern Europe, a lot of Ashkenazi Jews coming in. And pretty soon, it's not just, Anglos, well-assimilated, Germans who are well-assimilated to the Anglo culture, and then the Irish, which is what it was before. Now you have just as many Jews, just as many Italian Catholics who are Catholics like the Irish, but they're still not quite, there's still different communities. And we've just had to do that all the time. Even in 1924, when we kind of shut down immigration after the First World War, we basically shut down immigration from 1924 to 1965. There was some, but very limited and very selective. But as soon as that happened, as soon as the immigration pipeline was from Europe was cut off, that's when the great migration of African Americans out of the South starts. And in about 40 years, you get 6-7 million African Americans coming mostly from the country south into places like Detroit and all the places that you kind of associate with large African American communities now. It's kind of crazy to think about, but if you go back to like the First World War, Detroit's African American population was like 2%. And that was Philadelphia, Baltimore. I think Baltimore had like 8 or 9, but like that was how it was. Pretty much all African Americans still lived down in the South. And so over the course of about 40 years, they all move out to all the big cities, and you have to still, like, they're from America, obviously, but like you got to renegotiate like your identity with these people and figure out like a new political compromise in these cities in the various places. And when the Great Migration of African Americans starts to peter out in 1965, we reopen the floodgates of immigration with the Hart-Celler Act, and that's the world we're kind of in now. And so and look, especially back in the day, in the first like two big waves of migration into the U.S., the Ellis Island, migrations, like those were like America would not be here today if we didn't do that. Like there were not enough out of work English people, over in England to come over here and take over this whole continent. It was just never going to happen. The only way it was ever going to happen is if we were radically open and tolerant to people, because you go back to there's a naturalization law. I think it was the first naturalization law on the books in the United States, 1798. And you see a lot of like racialist types point to this as if it kind of backs up their idea of what of what America's history is and what it should be, because it says all white persons of good character, all free white persons of good moral character, if you come to the United States, can become a citizen. And people see that and they focus on the white part and they say, see, they wanted America to be a white country or whatever. That is totally the wrong way to understand that law.
Water and breathe.
I get like a weird high after, for sure.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
It lasts for hours.
Yeah.
It increases your dopamine by 200%. And it lasts for hours.
So why is it that healthier than doing a drug that increases your dopamine?
Well, because it's natural.
Natural.
Yeah, it's natural.
Okay.
Also, it's like it gives you something in terms of mental resilience. It gives you like an exercise. That exercise,
Right, correct, yeah.
it's very difficult,
is
especially
hard.
for the first minute. It's hard. First
Dude.
minute, your body's like, let's get the fuck out of here. And it keeps talking to you, and you're like, shut up, bitch.
Yeah.
And then after a minute, that calms down, and you can breathe clean. You start getting those rhythmic breaths
Yeah.
in and
Yeah.
out, and just keep your shit together for 3 minutes. And then when you get out, you're like,
That's what you do typically 3 minutes?
So it's like,
Yeah.
one, there's the feeling like I did it, which feels great. Like I didn't bitch out. I actually did the 3 minutes. But then there's just like this euphoric feeling as your
Dude.
body just, your norepinephrine, your dopamine, everything elevates. You just feel wonderful. You
Patience,
feel great.
too. My patience is killer.
Yes,
Kids, I'm
yeah.
smiling more. Oh, that's
yeah.
fine. You can draw on the wall. Yeah,
'cause
whatever.
It's like that part of your brain got exhausted. The part of your
Right,
brain that's
right.
dealing with like real adversity. So like little kids' adversity is nothing.
It's not.
You're not freezing to death. They're
Yeah.
just like, that's my crayon.
Right.
And you're like, come on,
That's
guys.
right.
Let's get along.
It's been a super benefit to me. The problem living in New York is I don't get to cold plunge as much as I want to. But
Well, they have stuff that you could
Yeah.
do, like, you could do it in your tub if you can get ice.
I used to do that.
And they also have these coolers that you can plug in, and you could do like if you have like one of those big Yeti coolers,
Yeah.
you can climb in that, and you'll put a hose in there and a cooler, and it'll bring that down to like 40 degrees, and you can just get in
That'd be a lot,
like a
but-
Yeti cooler.
Yep.
Yeah, I bet you could do it in a bathtub too. I bet they figured out how to attach an engine to that.
Something. Yep.
Do they have one? Yeah, they do.
Oh,
have
yeah.
one. Yeah, Jamie knows it. So how does it work?
I'll show you, but there's just like a little motor thing you attach. Just
So
like
that's
the-
perfect. Like if you just have a bathtub, you're golden.
Can actually do
If
that.
you live in an apartment that has a tub,
Yeah.
you have a cold plunge now. Or if you don't have that, get yourself a Yeti cooler. Yeti makes some giant ass coolers, like from people hunt caribou
So
and
I
shit.
just typed in bathtub cold plunge.
Yeah, there it is.
Two,
So
there's
you
another
just
one
have
here.
this thing. It plugs in. It cools everything off, and you climb it. How cold does that motherfucker get? 39 degrees.
It's
Perfect.
crazy that
Never buy
now
ice again. 2-year warranty.
we're such comfort zones as humans now that we have to pay $800 to cool our water to get into it.
Yeah, it's a bit of an issue.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're pussies.
we're pussies now.
We've made life very easy, which is
Yeah.
wonderful. It's better than being hard. I don't want to live in the fucking
That's right.
gladiator days.
That's what the point was
Yeah.
to make it easy.
Yeah,
to
make
have
it so you don't
food
have to.
and sugar and fat readily available at all times.
You don't
yes.
have to carry a sword with you everywhere.
Dude, I love going to the Natural History Museum in New York and go into the armor.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus Christ. It's
Yeah.
like what these motherfuckers had to wear and use and carry
Did you ever
to
see
defend
that
themselves is nuts.
from? I think it's Waterloo. One of the battles. One of the French soldiers got hit with a cannonball in the chest, and they have the armor that has the hole in the chest, like in the cannonball out the back, exploding
Oh
outward.
my
Look at
God,
that,
dude.
Look at that. Yeah, that's from
it's
the
like-
Battle of Waterloo. That guy got hit with a cannonball in the chest.
And I bet you his armor salesman was like, I'm going to upsell this guy on, and he's like, no, I don't want the upsell. Then he should have.
Monsieur, I'm telling you, this armor, no cannonball.
That is
Went right through him.
that is a great reminder of what society and life used to be like.
God damn,
A
man. Look at that one
cannonball?
on the other one, Jamie. No, but the one to the left where you see the exit, right to the left of that. Yeah, right there. You see the exit
Jesus
hole.
Christ.
Boom. Blew right through this guy's body, his armor, his chest, out the back.
That's crazy.
The size of a fucking softball. Oh.
That's fucked up.
Yeah, it's pretty fucked up.
That's super fucked up.
That was life back then. It's
Yeah.
better.
And
Look,
that's a guy that could have had armor. That's probably a
Probably.
high-ranking person. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right.
He got hit.
He got
That's a
fucked
wrap,
up.
son. But you got to think that those people would have much rather live today with all this comfort. Oh my God.
Yeah.
The problem is you just can't rely on it too much. You can't live for comfort. That's stupid. You got to have voluntary discomfort.
Yeah.
That'll help you get through this life.